Hello, and thank you so much for coming along to our panel session, Learning and Training with Bots. Why not? We have excellent panelists here, and I'll first start by introducing Dr. Lars Satow from SAP Germany. Dr. Satow is an educational psychologist, professional learning executive, and test author. He started his career at SAP Learning Solutions, where he was responsible for the SAP certification program for several years. Since 2014, he is responsible for social and digital learning on SAP's cloud platform, SAP Learning Hub, with more than 500,000 learners from all over the world. And he'll tell us a little bit about how he uses chatbot on that platform. So
Thank you. So, let me give you a quick introduction in how SAP is using chatbots in learning. I will also show you a quick demo. And at the end, I will share with you some data proving the effectiveness of chatbots. But before I start, a little bit of background. I'm from SAP Knowledge and Education, and we are, so to say, the training department of SAP. So our goal is to train SAP customers and partners to ensure that all our customers and partners can really get the best out of SAP solutions. And since a couple of years, we have really restructured our complete portfolio. And from this slide, you get a little idea of what we are doing. We are still doing a lot of classroom training, but we have now also other offerings. OpenSAP, for example, it's very famous. If you really want to learn more about AI, more about how to use machine learning, or more about SAP, go to OpenSAP. And there you find MOOCs, which you can join for free, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and after that you can even earn a certificate. These are the emerging trends that we see, and machine learning for sure is an important trend for SAP, and our vision is to enable the intelligent company in the area or in the world of the fourth industrial revolution. And here for this presentation, I will show how we can use machine learning even in learning. As I said, a few years ago, we started to restructure our portfolio of training and learning offerings. We are still doing live learning with traditional classroom, but also virtual learning. In addition to that, we have 2 offerings. One is OpenSAP, which is for free, and which is really interesting if you want to, as a beginner, get a better understanding of SAP, get a better understanding of the technologies used at SAP, and it's all for free. If you then decide you want to become an SAP professional, then we offer SAP Learning Hub, a subscription model, and here on SAP Learning Hub you get access to all the training content as e-learning, webinars, videos that SAP offers, plus additional learning communities where our trainers support you in reaching your learning goals. We are very successful with both offerings, with OpenSAP and SAP Learning Hub. We have won several awards, and also the number of learners increased dramatically during the last years. I'm telling you that because it's important later to understand why we are using chatbots. But what is also important is that we not only focus on making our training available in the digital world. For us, also the user experience, so the overall learning experience is important. And here we see the learner in the center, and we try to offer a really personalized and interactive social learning experience in the digital world for our learners and SAP professionals. And in this context, we see 4 key enablers. And the first key enabler are learning journeys. And here we try to guide our learners on their way to their SAP qualification. And why is that so important? We started without these learning journeys. But then the most frequent question we got was, where should I start? I want to become an SAP expert. I want to learn more about machine learning. I know that you have this great offering, but where should I start? And then we said, okay, we need some guidance, and therefore we have our learning journeys. The other key enabler that we see are digital assistants and bots to personalize learners and to help learners on their way, but also to make learning more effective. And how this works, I will show you in a second. Third enabler are learning rooms. These are moderated learning communities, because we believe it's not enough only to give the learner access to thousands of e-learning courses. Often they have questions. They want to support when applying the knowledge into the real world. And this is what we offer in learning rooms, our moderated learning communities. In every learning room, there is a trainer who not only answers our learner question, but also tries to facilitate and coach the learner. And finally, the fourth key enabler are digital badges. So we believe that in the old world where we had printed out certificates, this will go away. And therefore, when you start your learning journey and you complete your learning journey, you will earn digital badges, which you can share with your employer, with your network, and which also allow you to prove your formal qualifications and informal qualifications. Good, as I said, digital assistants are a key enabler for us in learning. And here we are talking about different scenarios. And the most simplest and easiest scenario is that you have digital assistants, bots, to welcome new learners. What is in a digital world particularly important? Because if a trainer, for example, would welcome every new learner on our SAP Learning Hub or on OpenSAP, with the amount of learners we have, it's a simple, impossible task. The second scenario is to answer learner questions. The third one, more important, is to guide learners, because this is still, even that we have the learning journeys now, the most frequent question we are getting from learners, and most of our learners are from countries like India, China, Russia. Yeah? So I want to become an SAP expert. I want to start my career at SAP or with SAP, but where should I start to learn? The most important question for a learner. And our bots help learners here to find their way through our offerings. And finally, the fourth scenario is to coach learners, to give feedback, to evaluate their results, to help them to reinforce learning. Okay, I will now do a little deep dive into the 3 scenarios. The first scenario is answer learning questions. And this scenario is in particular so important because we have, as I said, these moderated learning communities. And in those learning communities, we're getting more and more questions. And our human moderators cannot answer all those questions. We need to free their time, to ensure that they are able to support our learners. And therefore, we implemented the first bot, and this is then more a social bot than a chat bot, in our learning rooms. And this is what I already said. If you look at the numbers, then we have now more than 250,000 learners in our learning communities. We're getting thousands of questions per day. and we implemented the bot, the social bot, so it's active in a forum, in a community. We implemented the social bot to free up time from our trainers and moderators. How does it work? So we have our learning rooms on our platform on SAP Learning Hub. And the bot, in the background, the social bot, monitors all questions, all comments. And if the bot decides, or I wouldn't say feels, but if the bot thinks that he can answer a question, then the bot posts the answer into the forum, into the feed. Only then. And you see here an example on a feed where the bot provided an answer. So it's not a chatbot, it's not synchronous, it's an asynchronous scenario. You post an answer into the forum, and only when the bot has reached a certain likelihood, a certain confidence level, then the bot will post the answer into the community. I would like to skip this because I'm looking at the time here. The second scenario, guidance and recommendation, even more important, as already explained. And here I would like to show you a little video to give you an idea how this looks like. So we have here our landing page for learning journeys. So here the starting point for learning. And our learners can now try to search for the right learning journey, or they can interact with the bot to find the best fitting learning journey for them. And how this looks like is shown here. So the bot is launched, and the learner now types in a question, for example, that he wants to learn more about SAP Leonardo. This is our AI platform, which you can use for your company. And then the bot comes back with a question because he knows now, okay, we have several learning journeys in the field of Leonardo. And the learner chooses the right role then and the right topic. And then based on my answer in my profile, the bot recommends the right learning journey for me. And finally, so after 3 steps, the learner can then open the learning journey. And this is the learning journey, so a recommended path through our learning materials. And the learner can now start. And if the learner has questions, he can go back to the bot and ask questions, additional questions. The third scenario, we are now about to implement on a mobile app. Why on a mobile app? Because the feedback we are getting from our learners is that especially if they prepare for an SAP certification exam, for example, with e-learning or with courses, they want to practice to be sure that they really pass the certification exam. So to reinforce their learning and to ensure their success in the certification exam, we are about to offer a mobile app to help them to prepare, even better prepare for the certification exam. So this is the app. It shows the progress of the learner. It has a section with content. From there you can access short videos which explain you important aspects of the course to prepare you for the certification exam. You can also access then questions, multiple choice questions, similar to what you will see in the certification exam. And this is then new, you can also chat with the bot. And the bot will give you guidance, will give you feedback, will evaluate your answers, and can also guide you then to training material, to mobile training material, to ensure that you really have learned what you are supposed to learn and that you are really prepared for the certification exam. Because we are talking about machine learning, new technologies, I in particular think it's very important to evaluate all the claims we made. we make. And as we are talking about data-driven industry, data-driven future, we are also trying to do this with data coming from our learners. And we started to train our bot 1 year ago. And after 1 month, our bot had answered 210 questions. And you can see from here, or was exposed to 210 questions. Yeah? And you can see from this diagram that the bot was not able, as I said, to answer all questions. Yeah? So only a certain part of questions were answered by the bot. And you also see the correctness of the question. So it was about 80%. After 1 year, we did this again. So right before this presentation, I had a look at the last 1,000 questions that were coming in from our learners. And there you can see that now, so after 1 year, the bot was able to answer 70% of all questions. So compare that with 1 year ago, 42%. Then you see here the effect of machine learning. At the beginning, 1 year ago, only 42%. Now the bot was able to answer 70%. And also if you look at the confidence level, so 1 year ago we had a confidence level from 78%. Now after 1 year of training and self-optimization, we have a confidence level of 97%, which is actually quite good. We also looked at how many answers given by the bot were marked by the learners as best answers. So when did the learner liked an answer or even said this answer is the best answer? And you see that we also see here a little increase, but not that much. So only about 8 to 9% of the learners say, okay, this really was the best answer. The reason why this number is not increasing most likely is a usability issue. Many learners simply do not see this functionality and don't know how to use it, or simply think that this is not needed to mark it as best answer. In addition, we also did some usability testing, and there are also some interesting results I would like to share here. So we ask users to interact with the bot and then to rate how easy it was to interact with the bot on a scale from 1 to 10. And you see that the ratings are quite good, so all higher as 9. As a control group, we asked other people to interact with our human moderators, so ask a question in the learning room or even search for the answer. And you see that the ratings are much lower than the ratings for the bot. And this is also what users and learners tell us, at least most of them. We really like the interaction with the bot. We really like that we get an immediate answer, because this is the real benefit of a bot. If I ask a question in a forum, I normally have to wait 2 to 3 days to get the answer from a trainer. The bot, even if he cannot answer all questions, and even if the bot is not always 100% correct, can give me an immediate answer. Yeah? So I don't have to wait for the answer, a huge, huge benefit. Good, so this is the end of my presentation. I will post a paper that we wrote about this, and also the slides and the videos you can find if you follow me on Twitter. Thank you.
Thank you, Lars. Next up, we have the Innovation Unit Coordinator and Lecturer at Madrid Open University, UDIMA, Silvia Prieto Preboste. Silvia's research and teaching center around the intersections of digital media and society, with Special focus on innovation and emerging technologies such as mobile, adaptive learning, wearable, and smart technologies. She has published articles and books on the use of information communication technologies in learning and teaching. And today she'll share with us how she built a MOOC based on chatbots.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's for me a real pleasure to be here with you, talking about chatbots, talking about education, to share, well, the first thing I'm going to do is to thank the organization of the Online Educa Berlin for accepting my proposal and giving me the opportunity to share my ideas with Miho, with Donald, with Lars. Well, she has already presented me, but let me introduce myself. My name is Silvia Prieto. I'm currently the innovation coordinator of the Madrid Open University, and I am also a teacher at the master's degree in educational technology. I participate in some national and international projects related with my research interest, and some of them were funded by the Erasmus Plus program with partners from all over Europe. Now let me talk a little bit about my organization, the Madrid Open University. UDIMA is the first distance learning university in Spain. It was created in 2006, and it already has around 800 of teachers and collaborators and 25,000 of students per year. Our academic offer includes 20-degree programs, 36 master's degree programs, doctorate program, and a language institute. And the Madrid Open University aims to promote the use of ICT tools and the implementation of new educational methodologies. In the learning experience that I'm going to share with you today, we have collaborated with a Spanish company called Marac Digital Marketing. It's a Spanish company who is an expert in some things like digital strategy, social media, online promotion, e-commerce, and emerging technologies. They help us with the design, programming, and implementation of the chatbot. Now let's go to the experience. The Madrid Open University, with the help of Marac Digital, implemented a chatbot called MOOCbot to help students in the elaboration of instructional designs of a MOOC. And in the second phase, the chatbot helped them in the assessment of the MOOC proposal of another classmate. This experience was a learning activity in the subject Innovation in E-Learning of the master's degree in educational technology. The research sample, as you can see in the slide, were 83 students of this master's degree. These students were mostly teachers of primary and secondary school, and also vocational and educational training teachers. We have 61% of females and 39% of males. Here you can see the complete sequence of the development of the learning activity. In the first phase, we design and programming the chatbot with the company Marac Digital. In this phase, we designed the script of questions, the transitions between the questions, and the types of answers allowed. After that, MOOCbot was programmed and integrated into the social media Facebook. The second phase was the development of the learning activity with all the students, and was divided into 4 subphases. In the first subphase, the students develop the instructional design of their MOOC, answering the questions of the MOOC. MOOC also offered them additional resources and information to carry out this task. In the second subphase, students had to visit the MOOC again to assess the MOOC design made by another classmate. The chatbot gave each student the MOOC design to evaluate them and ask them several questions to assess the MOOC. At the end of this subphase, MOOC gave each student a PDF with assessment that they had done, and in the third subphase, the student had to upload the two PDF files, the MOOC design and the assessment of another MOOC, to the virtual course. And finally, the teacher assessed these two documents. Now let's talk a little bit about the designing and programming of the chatbot. We divide it into three parts. The first part was the design of a question script that the chatbot would ask the students. The questions script include the possible transitions between questions and the type of answers allowed. Some of them were open-ended questions, require writing answers, and in other cases, closed questions. Some examples of questions were, what is the title of your MOOC? What is your MOOC about, and how would you describe it to promote it? As our chatbot was an assistant to design a MOOC, we include in the MOOC boot information and hints to answer the questions that guide and orient the creation process. Students could get this information if desired, clicking the More Info button. Also, we include some positive feedback to motivate them. Then the chatbot was programmed and integrated into the social media Facebook, and we made a test to ensure that our chatbot worked well and to check that the transitions between the questions are as desired. Then we start the learning activity with the students. They access to the chatbot at Facebook page and answer all the questions. They will take several days, to complete this task. They can answer some questions, and another day they can start again and continue at the same point. When a student finished this design part, the chatbot generated a PDF file with the student proposal, a chart with all the answers. And they have to save this file for the final delivery. The MOOC instructional design file includes some sections like author, title, language, target groups of the MOOC, main topic, description, MOOC's platform, course objectives, something like that. To monitor and track this task, the teacher, in this case myself, had access to a backend with a database that showed every user's information, including the phase in which the assistant was for each student. Then the students had to access again to the MOOC, and they had to assist a classmate proposal. When they access again, the chatbot gave them a document with the proposal of another classmate, and they had to answer the questions of the MOOC. Questions like, does the MOOC include the mandatory elements? Are the different elements of the MOOC exposed in clear and concise way? rate the MOOC proposal for 1 to 10 points. At the end, MOOCbook again generated a PDF file with the assessment made by the student. And again, they had to save it for the final delivery. When the student has the 2 PDF files, they had to upload it to our virtual campus Moodle, and the teacher received both documents and assessed them. At the end of the learning activity, we carry out a satisfaction survey with the students, and as you can see, the results were very, very good. The survey was answered by 39 students, and about 85% of them agreed that the chatbot was a good tool to carry out a peer-to-peer evaluation and a design MOOC. 85% of them thought that the chatbot is a good tool to design a MOOC. 90% felt that using the MOOCbook had really helped them to design the MOOC. Talking about technological aspects, only 6% of students thought that use the chatbot was very difficult, and 92% of them perceived the interaction with the chatbot as easy. 92% of them agree or totally agree that the chatbot is very useful in the educational field, and 100 of the students rate the activity as positive or very positive. 60% of them experience a lot of motivation using the chatbot. Some of the comments of the students were, I think it's very interesting and innovative activity. Carrying out the activity with the chatbot made the process very easy. I think it is a very innovative and friendly way of doing an academic work, and well, another positive messages. That's all. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Silvia. And last but definitely not the least, Professor Donald Clark from Plan B Learning from the United Kingdom. Donald is an entrepreneur, CEO, professor, speaker, and blogger, and probably already well known to those of you who've been coming to OEB for the past couple of years. He was CEO and one of the original founders of Epic Group, PLC, which established itself as the leading company in the UK e-learning market. As he puts it, he is free from the tyranny of employment and is now the CEO of an AI learning company, Wildfire, investor and board member of Plan B Learning, Learning Pool, and Cookbooks. And today he'll be sharing with us the different uses of chatbots.
Thank you. Yes, so for the last 4 years of my life, I've been wholly and utterly involved in learning and AI. And it's the only thing I invest in, build a company in that area, because I think it is of such significance. But I'm going to be really quite honest with you today and talk about the nightmare world of chatbots that I've been involved in, and maybe tell you some of the things that go wrong. And, you know, because I have great faith in this medium, chatbots, but on the other hand, I think we have to be a bit careful and a bit realistic about what they are. Because to be honest, they're mostly bought with a wee bit of chat. And if you've got an Amazon Alexa or Google Home, and you try and engage in conversation with it, you'll see how limited some of the technology really is in the real world. First of all, you know that all of these companies, these are the top tech companies, they're all in the top 10 by market capitalization, the most valued companies on the planet, and all of them are essentially AI companies. And every single one of them has a huge amount of research going into chatbots, some more than others. But there's absolutely no doubt that the technology world is driven, one, by AI, and then one species, mostly in natural language processing, around AI. Okay, so this is a big deal. It's not a small deal. Let me just show you this bit, because you can actually buy a phone right now that will do this. It's the Google phone, the Google Pixel phone. Okay, so listen to this girl. She's making the phone is making a booking at a restaurant. Oh, hold on. Is the video playing, guys? That's it.
Hello, Cafe Prague.
So she's asking her phone to make a booking at the restaurant.
Call from Google, so the call may be recorded. Can I book a table for tomorrow, please?
Yes, at what time would you like to reserve?
At
The
7
phone
p.m.
is booking
Okay,
the...
perfect. How many people?
It's for 2 people.
Okay, 2 people tomorrow at 7 p.m. What's your name?
The first name is Anna.
Anna. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay, so if you,
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
so if you buy this phone, it will phone up a restaurant for you using voice, make the booking. You don't have to worry about it because every Google phone has a Google Assistant on. So you just say, I want a booking in Lubitsch restaurant, where I was last night at my birthday here in Berlin, and it will phone up Lubitsch, tell the number of people, get the reservation, and it's done. But why is that not available on every Google phone? Because it's not reliable enough for release, really. It's not really good enough. Even with the massive resources that Google has behind the chatbot, it won't do it predictably. So it's a soft launch. You can only get this on selected phones in some cities in the US. And be very careful about using third-party chatbot suppliers like IBM, Watson, and so on. And I've been bitten by 2 companies here, Microsoft and IBM. So you use their back-end chatbot facility, and then, because they don't really care about your business, they change it without telling you, and you're left high and dry with your customers. Be very careful about using third-party chatbot vendors, because you can be executed overnight, and they often don't tell you exactly what they're doing in terms of their platforms. But why bots in learning? I think another problem with chatbots in learning is we don't pay enough attention to the learning. So let's have a chatbot. Why? Why do you want a chatbot? Always look at the learning first. Let's reverse the question somewhat. Now, I think certainly AI is the new UI, that old argument. So every one of you on your phone now is immersed in AI. If you're using Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, if you buy on Amazon, if you look at Netflix, you are using AI. Every single day you use AI, except in learning. We don't use AI. We don't use any of that stuff. We have that crappy old e-learning, click, 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 multiple choice question. That's what we have. That's a mistake. Because going back to 2014, all your learners, at least your young learners and students, have switched over into chat and messaging apps, leaving social media behind, really. So if you look at actual usage, look over the shoulder of an 18-year-old, they're far more likely to be engaged in dialogue than they are in looking at a website, or using social media even. And then beyond that, of course, we have these devices. The best-selling device by Amazon on Black Friday was the Amazon Dot. This is into millions of homes now. The ability to speak to something. I have the old Amazon Echo there. I've switched it around. I've told some people this before. I've spent a year learning German unsuccessfully. I switched my Amazon Alexa to speak to me in German. So when I make my coffee in the morning, I can say, you know, what time it is in English, and the Amazon Alexa will come back and say, die Zeit ist 3 Uhr, or whatever the time is. Really, actually the actual time. So it's like having a German person in my kitchen. That's how you learn a language, by the way, not going to school for 8 years as they do in England, and unsuccessfully coming out, not even being able to order a cup of coffee when they come to Germany. Beyond that, though, what's the learning theory behind chatbots? And here, it was quite nice to hear the real, because I don't think these guys are guilty of this at all, but I think we should look to the real big benefits that chatbots now give us in learning theory, because most learning theory we don't apply in e-learning or in real teaching. So if you look at the last 10 years in cognitive science, we absolutely know that cognitive retrieval matters, and I always look away from the page, ask a question. You know, if I said, what's the capital of Scotland to everybody here? I could give you a crappy multiple choice question, you know, is it Edinburgh, Barcelona, Paris, or London? That would be stupid because you'd get it right every time. Or I could say, what is the capital of Scotland? And leave you there and let you think. Well, I don't know, you know. That's what a chatbot should be like. That's what a real teacher does. So open input, retrieval, spaced practice, all of these wonderful things in learning theory that we know about and never apply, we can now use in this type of technology, but we rarely do. Where to use bots in learning? I think I like the idea that we look at this, like Lars said, across the learning journey, you know, from student engagement to student support, in their courses themselves, in assessment, even in well-being. There's a whole string of areas across the learning journey that we can use bots in. If we go to onboarding, so we had an example there. If you use Slack or one of those things, there'll be a bot there that gives you an introduction to Slack quite nicely. But you can use it as an onboarding thing within your organization, for example. That nice human chat introduction, you know, I think that's quite a nice use of them. The learner, that's a Slack bot, if you've ever used that particular system. Learner engagement tools. This is becoming quite common. So learners are really lazy. When you had an essay to write at college, did you wait till the last 2 nights before you wrote it? Of course you did, because you're human like everybody else. Procrastination is the norm. Nobody really likes learning. They put it off till the last minute. But you can start engaging students, pushing them, probing them, nudging them towards learning using bots quite nicely. I've seen a number. Differ's the very famous one in Scandinavia. There are many others. And then learning support, which is what Lars was referring to there. So if you have a problem, and you need to solve that problem, will you email your member of faculty or your supervisor in your work and wait 3 days for an answer, or do you want the answer there and then? Well, of course, as we saw Lars present, you want the answer right then because you have a problem. So the idea of a bot in the workflow, in your messaging system, in Facebook, Microsoft Teams, Slack, whatever system you have, is absolutely where it should be to give learners support in their learning journey, wherever they are. Then we have, and that's the very famous example, which many of you will have heard of, is the famous Georgia Tech bot, which is now 3-4 years old, and was so successful they put it up for a teaching award without knowing it was a bot. They thought it was a real teacher. So this thing, there are many, many other examples where it's been almost passing the Turing test in that sense. Then we have invisible LMS bots. So if you have one of those horrible bits of software, the LMS or the VLE, which is an unloved place, like a dungeon or a cellar, nobody likes going there. The idea would be to hide your LMS and front it with something interesting. So you've got all that learning stuff and all that support, but don't put that up front with 3 menus before you get to anything that you have to learn from. Front it with a chatbot. So there are a number of systems out there. Otto is the one I've been heavily involved in. So that sits above your LMS or your VLE, and you go and say, well, what is blockchain? I don't know what blockchain is. And it goes and finds the answer for you, there and then. And may even give you a little bit of learning. It may even recommend a short video on YouTube on blockchain, whatever. Hide the LMS. Beyond that, and Lars touched on this a little bit, this is quite exciting, I think, the mentor bot. In other words, what do real teachers do with students? Not most, but a lot of the bots I've seen have been FAQ bots. The bot, you ask the bot a question. But I can do that in Google. Why would I want a bot? Because all bot is doing is looking at Google or using Elasticsearch or some other bit of software behind the scenes to just search for Google. I don't see the point in this. Actually, a bot might not answer the question. So Roger Schrank, who's spoken here before, he's building a number of mentor bots for the Ministry of Defence in the UK. Students don't know what they don't know. They might not know what question to ask. They might want, you might know what context the question is because you know they're doing a specific course. And it may not give them the answer. It may be that the mentor bot is like a teacher. It's just encouraging you to find the answer. It's giving you a learning strategy and behaving more like a normal teacher. And I think that's what we should think about, reversing bots, not to become things that answer questions, but things that ask you questions like a teacher. Beyond that, we have practice bots, and I think this is a really interesting area here. In other words, it does what good teachers do and go into retrieval practice, which we know massively increases retention and therefore recall. I've seen some very successful examples of this in the market. There's the Duolingo bots, of course. If I were learning German using Duolingo, I get to a certain level on my vocabulary, on my grammar, and then it just stops because I need to practice the language. Level 2 language learning, you need to use the damn thing. But of course, I don't know any German people in Brighton where I live. I certainly don't have one in my house. Well, I have my Alexa, that gets me so far. But actually, I can practice with a bot on Duolingo. And I see great future for that type of interaction and language learning. Beyond that, in education, I saw this wonderful application I was teaching in Penn State in the US. And in the education department there, they had this beautiful little bot, which was a really annoying young boy in school. So I don't know how many of you had boys, the kids, where they get to a stage where they become a little bit spicy. And if you've ever taught in a school, and you walk in through that door, and there are 30 kids, every one of them want to have a go at you, it's the most terrifying thing you'll do in your life. So what they do with this bot is you can practice on this young, annoying kid who's quite witty, quite sparky, but you can actually practice your social skills and calming them down, dealing with them in the right way before you go into the classroom. You can do this with patients, customers, and so on. And then the last couple of things here, assessment bots. You can actually use a bot to be the examiner. And I've seen a very good application in this in the past. I've been using this with big clients on open input retrieval bots. That actually works quite well as well. So rather than a straightforward exam, the bot might be an adaptive testing assessment bot. And then lastly, well-being bots. The NHS in England have been playing, I was in Rwanda this year. 2 million people in Rwanda use a bot to access medical services. Isn't that amazing? In other words, there are not enough doctors there, but if you have a problem, you go on, you can get a consultation, your medical records up, all sorts of things. And this will come. It's already happened with services like Clio and Finance and so on. And if you really want a nice little experience of how good and really terrible bots are, try Wobot. Wobot is a little coaching bot. It's not really a coaching bot, it's a counseling bot. So if you feel you've got depression or a mental health problem, even if you haven't, try this. Stick with it for about 10 days, and every morning, when you're looking at Facebook or whatever, it comes up on Facebook Med, and it just nudges you. Would you like a little session? It's only 3 or 4 minutes. You can reschedule it for the next morning, but it pushes to you. And it's absolutely amazing after 10 days. Now, I don't think I've got a mental health problem, but I actually got to quite like this, being counseled by the bot. I really advise looking at this if you're interested in detail. And let me end on one thing here, because I'm involved with I'm on the boards of several e-learning companies that are involved in artificial intelligence, and something very interesting has happened over the last year. Because all the interactive design people that we had don't know anything about bots, anything about AI, but we've had to retrain them. And we've had to retrain them because this is not about monologue. This is not about taking a PDF and shoving it online with a couple of multiple choice questions, which is 99.9% of e-learning with some graphics. This is about really highly intelligent, smart interactions with users through bot interfaces and natural language processing, so that it speaks to you like a human being, real dialogue. Now, what do you do with all those people that just write text? Do you think they can all write dialogue? Do you think they could get work in television and film? I don't think so. So we're having to retrain them and shift them from presentation skills, media production, multiple choice questions, all that jazz down here on the left-hand side, and retrain people because they really have to know the functionality of the bot. You cannot write for a bot if you don't know what the AI system behind the bot is. It's absolutely hopeless. So you have to become more technically astute. There's less media production involved in all this, thankfully. I'm really tired of e-learning that's over-engineered and just, animation, video, graphic, multiple choice question stuff. Actually, e-learning companies now are media production companies, as far as I can see, thinly veiled and, pretending to be learning by just putting some multiple choice questions in, or a bit of Pavlovian gamification is not enough. It has to get smarter. So writing dialogue. Also, the AI adaptive side of this, which is coming in. If you really want personalized learning, then this stuff really can affect that change. Some data skills, and above all, set expectations. If somebody walks through the door and says, I think you need a bot in your organization, think again. Think very carefully about what the bot is. It's not conscious, it's not smart, it will not understand every English, German, or Dutch sentence you type into it. In fact, it will only understand a very small subset of those questions. In truth, it's only software, guys, it's not a person, so it's not as smart as you might think. However, on a very narrow task, on nudging, learner engagement, learning support, assessment, well-being, it can work beautifully. And people really do like them. Even when they're very primitive, people seem to like them because you're easily fooled into thinking they have human qualities. So Nass and Reeve did all the research way back 10 years ago at Stanford on this. When something behaves on a computer like a human being, we think it's a human being. And that's what chatbots do. You're easily fooled. But that's a nice thing. That's okay. That's what we can play to. It's a card trick. It's a trick. It doesn't understand shit about what you're saying. It's only a bit of software. But it feels human. And I think that's the big advantage here. So hopefully I've given you some of the warnings as well as the benefits. I think this is a great area. Go ahead and do the bot thing, but be careful in thinking about what it is. It may not be as good as you think it is, or your students think it is. Okay, thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Donald. Now, I hear we have some other experts here in the room. Does anybody have any questions for our panel of experts on chatbots? Well, I can. Do you see any? Well, I'll kick off with one. Donald, you mentioned something about setting expectations. With all new technologies, we go through the hype and then the valley of disappointment, and then coming back up to kind of reaching the expectations of the hype again. Some people in the chatbot community said that 2017 was the year of the valley of disappointment. How do each of you feel about this year? Are we coming out of the valley? Are we getting closer to what was it?
Do you mean in chatbots?
Yes, and specifically in the education area.
Well, I don't buy that old Gartner chart. Like Google went from here to here without any valley. There was no valley. And loads of technology does that. I think the Gartner curve is like applied to everything universally, but it's not, doesn't match reality. On chatbots, I think that's what I was saying really. I think initially you had a rush of enthusiasm, and then loads of people did the FAQ search chatbots because they're really easy to build. They're the easiest to build. But that's not really what the learning community needs. So it's not so much a valley. I think we're going through a phase where we're, like good learning professionals like us, are thinking about the learning application of chatbots. That's how it should be. So flip it. That's happening. I don't think there's any valley, because hardly anybody, this is small beer, isn't it? Hardly anybody's really doing this in scale. Yes. Like you've got a few people here, and I'm sure a few in the audience, but this is like tiny stuff compared to other pedagogic techniques, I think.
And Sophia, how has that learning curve been for you and your chatbots, the learning curve for the chatbots and becoming?
Well, we are starting with chatbots at our university, so we are seeing the possibilities, and now we are testing how to use it and how to help students with it, what uses can be implemented in our organization. So we are at that point.
Interesting. And Lars, you mentioned that your chatbots are being used by learners in China and in India and all around the world, people whose first language is not necessarily English, and the chatbot is in English. How are you finding it dealing with these non-native English speakers? Yeah.
Yeah, first let me say I fully agree to what Donald said, yeah, that I think we have just started to exploit on chatbots and AI and learning. It's really that we are taking the first steps. And I also like the idea of these hidden bots, because I think not all bots are really chatbots. We will see many social bots, so bots being active in forums, mentor bots, and even hidden bots preparing learning recommendations, for example, in the background. So I think we will see much more bots in learning in the future. And I also liked, I think it was in the opening plenary today in the morning, one child, one tutor. And I think this will become to some degree the reality soon with AI and with chatbots. And back to your question with regard to non-native speaker, we had the feeling that in our communities, they have thousands of learners from India and other countries, and we also have to deal with a lot of, let's say, forum slang, or internet slang. So people are using abbreviations, their punctuation is missing, things like that. Yeah? All these things our technology can deal quite well with. Yeah? So this is not, I would say, not the primary issue or the challenge. What is more challenging to get the context right. Yeah? So often people ask questions in a certain context. There's maybe only one word that's so essential to get the context right. And this is where our technology at the beginning had really difficulties with. Yeah? The example I showed is a good example because there the learner is asking, I want to learn more about Leonardo. Leonardo is the name of the SAP platform for artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and so on. But Leonardo is also a first name. Yeah? And in the beginning, the chatbot always understood Leonardo as a first name and was not able to give a correct answer. Yeah? So things like this, or we are getting questions in a specific context, like a specific technology, and the user is using a keyword that's very important for that technology, but the bot is not able to understand the keyword because this word is used only by a few people. Yeah? So really experts use this word, and we do not have much training data on this word. So this was really a challenge at the beginning to make the bot understand the context. And but I think from what our data show, is that we are becoming better and better with that. And we haven't started with that yet, but it's also possible to use our technology for other languages as well. Yeah? But this year we have focused on English, but further languages will come, and then we will see if we can replicate the data and the results in other languages as well.
This context thing is really important. It's the big blocker at the moment.
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't really have a lot of, thank you for wonderful presentations. I don't have a lot of experience in chatbots, and this question is, I guess, particularly for Donald, but if you guys want to jump in, feel free. I'm wondering about the implications of the results of the conversation of the bot, for example, in the situation of dealing with a difficult kid or the mental health conversation, because obviously you can have a range of techniques, but not all of them will work with the same difficult kids, and then the same result can be for a mental health situation. Is there any research done for people who are pushed into the wrong direction after using those chatbots in this particular situation, or can the chatbot actually tap into their knowledge or their situation, search their social media? How does that look like? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, you know the Wobot thing I mentioned, which is like a counseling bot? When you go into Wobot, it does a really interesting thing. First of all, I had a technical problem with Messenger, and Wobot solved it for me. I was quite impressed by that. You know, it was like having an IT person help me. But then it said, it's very honest, Wobot. It said, I'm just a bit of software, you know, I'm not a person. So that was quite nice. And then it said, you may be interested, you know, this is a medical application. You may be a bit suspicious, you know, like your question. And it said, if you really want to know if I'm any good or not, have a look at this medical paper done by Stanford comparing the bot with an actual therapist. I thought, wow, this is getting really interesting. So I clicked on the paper, and it was a proper clinical study comparing the bot route with young students and a similar audience using traditional therapy techniques face-to-face. And interestingly, they were about the same, but of course the bot can deal with thousands of people simultaneously, and it's really expensive having a counselor on campus. And I thought, well, that's interesting to me then, because I think first step is, are they more efficacious than human beings? And in some cases, that was a clear example. I think they probably are, or similar. Are there dangers? No doubt. For example, on Alexa, I can ask Alexa a question. It doesn't record, well, I can get rid of the recorded questions if you know technically how to do that. And you might be a bit suspicious about privacy. I'm not. I want Alexa to know what I asked yesterday because I want it to know my context. Lars's point. When I use Duolingo, I want it to know what I was trying last week, and I want it to tell me that I've forgotten, and if you use Duolingo, it's adaptive learning. We're only going to get the power of this stuff if we stop being ridiculously suspicious about everything and accept the fact that it has to store stuff in order to apply machine learning techniques to get better. But you have a choice, use it or don't. you know? And so, whenever I hear those questions, oh, isn't it a bit dangerous? I'm going, well, we're only just getting off the ground here. Let's give it a chance to fly a little before we kill it stone dead with privacy concerns, because context matters, and I need a bit of your private life to know what context is. So I think Wobot's a really good example as an answer to that question. Try it, it's good.
I was wondering, normally, sometimes you notice right away that a bot is a bot. And it is presented, well, I am just a simple bot. But sometimes on websites from companies, you know after a while that you're not talking to a real person. Is there a relationship between these, managing these expectations and the satisfaction of users using these kind of bots? So are they more satisfied if they know that a robot is answering the questions than if they think that a human is answering the questions?
Yeah, we did extensive usability testing exactly on that question, because we're also very interested in finding an answer here. And from our results, the acceptance increases if the bot is clearly recognizable as a bot. And that's why our bot always answers with a short introduction saying that he is the bot. So our bot is called @thebot. And every answer starts with, hi, I'm @thebot. I saw your question, and maybe the following answer may help you. So that means we do not pretend to have here a human moderator or a human-generated answer. So we clearly, we make it very clear that this is a bot answer, which maybe is not perfect. And we ask our learners also for feedback to help the bot to improve. And we tested this in our usability labs. And for sure, people like or would prefer to talk to a bot which you cannot distinguish from a human agent. And we even tried different avatars. And users preferred avatars, human avatars, but then they really expect a perfect answer. And then they expect a conversation like they would have with a human being. And this is, at the moment, to be honest, not what a bot, at least at our level where we are using bots, can really deliver. So we are therefore clear about this is a bot, this is a conversation with a bot, and this, in our research, leads to good ratings and good acceptance scores.
Yeah. And Silvia, I saw you nodding vigorously to these answers. What
yes,
what
we thought about this question, and we know experience that use chatbots that seems to be a real person. But well, we decide to use a bot like a bot, and the first thing that our chatbot told our students is that I'm MOOCbot, I'm going to help you in the design of the MOOC, but students don't feel insecure or don't feel any resistance about that. They use the chatbot and they thought that chatbot is a good tool in the educational scope. And our students are teachers too, so they can evaluate the tool in their specific context, and I don't think that chatbots needs to seem to be real persons at all.
On how a chatbot should look to user, I'm dead against the little 1950s robot, which you see all the time. I mean, I don't know why anybody would do that. It's completely beyond me. It just takes, it looks like a throwback by 3 decades. But the second thing is that I really don't like face. So on Amazon Alexa, look at what Google and Amazon are doing. They don't have a little face on the side of the Alexa. Or when you buy Google Home, they've not painted a face on it because you don't need to. It's a bit like if you bought if you had a self-driving car and you also had to buy a robot to drive it. You don't need the robot. Robot teacher, the idea of a robot teacher is ridiculous. This is software, guys. So I don't think you need that human representation. I think that actually is a bit weird if you see a picture of a real person, but it's not.
Exactly, yeah.
So I like interaction with bots where it's frictionless. I don't want, you get its personality through the voice or how it responds to you, not by a front-end face. Go back to your question though, the Georgia Tech bot was really interesting because it was anonymous. So they had 9 teachers, they swapped one out for a bot, nobody knew, and these were AI kids. They were smart kids. They didn't know. And they still put it up for a teaching award. Now, what was interesting about that was its anonymity actually helped it function. Second year, they knew that 2 bots were going to be launched. They still couldn't spot it because it was so good. Remember, this is a high-end AI department. You're not going to do this cheaply. But the second time round, the kids were, once you identify it, they gave it a name, Jill Watson, which was a jokey name, so the smarter kids, oh yeah, and now we've got it. But I think, actually, real bots in the real world in commercial companies, you think it's a human being, but it's not, and it seamlessly moves into being human. Behind the scenes, I prefer the anonymity. I just want it to work functionally. I don't really care if it is a human being, to be honest, or a bot. I just want it to be competent and answer my question. So I think there's a big argument for anonymity and non-representation. I may be wrong, though. That's not based on solid data, I should add.
Hello, thank you for the presentations. When I read about and hear about chatbots, it's a lot about bringing something out to more people or doing something more effectively. What do you think are the pedagogical affordances of using chatbots or advantages that we get?
Well, I think the big one is, let me call it Socratic learning for a minute, and that can mean a lot of things. So in the history of pedagogy, we had a really horrible moment. It was in the late 18th century when somebody invented the blackboard. And so teachers started turning round with their back to the audience and writing things. And if you've ever done maths or physics at university, you will have sat there with a pain in your chest with boredom, with somebody who stands for sometimes up to 2 hours not looking at you, just writing stuff on a chalkboard. This is happening today. So that's crap pedagogy. But actually, we had some clues about dialogue here from the Socratic method, which is being a midwife to the students. Not good teachers do this. Secondary school, high school teachers are really good at this, I think. So I think we may have a return to quite powerful dialogue-based pedagogy through chatbots, because they disappeared not only with the chalkboard, PowerPoint, yeah, all of that stuff is the same thing. I think we may stop this 1-2 hour lectures on calculus from a chalkboard and get into some more dialogue-based learning. That would be my great hope. But there are many other things as well: retrieval, interleaving, spaced practice, loads of principles in learning that you can build into the chatbot, because you'll never get human teachers to do these. Spaced practice, Ebbinghaus, the great German psychologist, 1885, told us that it matters. I know of no teacher who uses it. Why not? Why don't we do it? Because it's difficult, it's awkward, it's costly. But chatbots can do it because they're dirt cheap and it's software. It's a good question, this. I think we'll be able to embody brilliant pedagogy in this technology rather than hoping that teachers will one day come round to it.
I think chatbots really can help us to scale the teacher skills, because the challenge that we have now more than 250,000 learners in our learning communities, and there's no way for our resources, for our teachers, to answer all learner questions, to guide all learners, to coach all learners. So there is, I believe, in online learning, no alternative to using chatbots, bots. It must not necessarily be chatbots all the way. So there's no alternative for using bots to scale teacher skills in online learning.
Yes. I think chatbots can take over some repetitive task for the teacher. So the teacher can has more time to give students a personalized monitorship and to give better support because he has gained a lot of time that this work is being done by a chatbot.
Yeah, a lot of teaching is admin. You know, if you've ever taught at school or in university, you find yourself doing lots of admin for students. The great hope with the chatbot stuff, this is why the Georgia Tech example was so beautiful. It was a teaching, it took all the admin away. I don't know any teacher who would dream about that. So, you know, why don't we adopt, you know, it makes your life easier if you take away the spade work. And then you can concentrate on good teaching, what real human beings are, you know, doing that stuff. But you know your life is ruined by paperwork and admin. But if the chatbot can do that with students, so much the better.
Last question?
Donald, you said be careful with third-party bots.
Yeah.
You also said it's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Lars, I guess SAP has some euros left over that you put into bots. It's not for free. But at the same time, if I want to start like tomorrow in my classroom or whatever with bots, and I don't have a couple million to put in some bot, how can I start tomorrow?
Yeah, well, the one thing I always caution people against is just jumping into this with no budget, you know, and thinking you're going to achieve something quickly. And you can, but it just falls off a cliff really quickly. And you may do more harm than good in the organization by launching something that just falls over and doesn't work very well, and you couldn't implement it properly. I mean, SAP have the resources, the scale, and so on to do it. And you find that these, and the Georgia Tech one was in one of the world's finest AI labs. So, you know, you can see how they can do it. But I would say that the middle ground is interesting here. So there are a number of companies who are like SME companies who are actually doing interesting things as a service for you, providing. I think they're interesting because their heart is in it, you know. Just piping in IBM. IBM have this huge sales force selling Watson and other services. You know, you're becoming a slave to that service. Whereas with a smaller company who get to know you, get to know your pedagogic issues and so on, I think you stand a better chance of success. And there are some lightweight tools you can use as well that are, you know, that means you're not dependent on the back-end services. So there, you know, I would always recommend that SME level entry point rather than jumping into bed with Microsoft and IBM. Their aim is to extract a lot of money from you eventually. Remember that. And they don't really want to deal with the small guys. They want to deal with SAP.
And there are also some GDPR-related issues with using external or third-party chatbot platforms, because you really need to be aware that you share all your customer questions with this third party, all the conversations, all the information customers provide in such questions goes to a third party, and they normally store these questions forever, to improve their chatbot platform. So it's really what you need to think through and where you need to be careful with.
I think GDPR is a disaster in Europe for this reason. I really do. I think they haven't thought the legislation through. It will stop huge number of projects, huge amount of research. I don't think they really understood what the consequences of GDPR were going to be in this area. And the Americans are already forging ahead. They're ignoring the European market on this chatbot stuff because it's too much bother. And we'll lose out, I feel. This is sad, but I think it's true.
Sylvia, any last thoughts?
No, I'm agree with Lars and Donald. When we implemented the chatbot, we have an expert to do that, and I think it's the easier thing we can do.
Okay. Well, thank you again to our wonderful panelists, Sylvia, Donald, and Lars, and thank you everyone for your questions and coming along and participating.